The left-wing streamer Hasan Piker recently said, and I'm quoting here, "Someone who will not say the truth about Israel's genocide will not stand with you and fight for you, for your health care, for your housing. It's that simple." Do you agree with that statement?
I think what we have seen from New Yorkers, what we have seen from Americans when we talk about this hunger for a new kind of politics, it's a hunger to move beyond the bankruptcy that characterizes a lot of politics today. And it is hard to find a more bankrupt policy approach than what our country has done to Gaza and to Palestine, and how it hasn't been specific to any one party. It's been again and again an insistence to tell New Yorkers and to tell Americans that what they are seeing is not something that they should in fact either be concerned by or believe in.
Sometimes, I mean, it's a good answer, by the way. It's a good answer. Sometimes I do think that he is, I already listened to this. Sometimes I do think that he gets a little too politician-like. I'm going to be honest.
And when you talk about the rupture in trust that comes from that, it is hard to then turn to another issue and say, believe me here. And what I've found time and again is that that trust, you have to be able to maintain it. It's not to say that you have to agree on everything, but there has to be an honesty. And too often you'll find that there are far more people who will privately tell you that something is a genocide than publicly announce it to be so. And so long as there's an understanding of a difference in what people believe and what they're willing to say, there will be a skepticism and, frankly, a despair amongst those considering whether or not to engage themselves in politics.
So should the litmus test for a politician who wants to be part of your coalition be their views on the Gaza war and their commitment to calling it a genocide?
It's one litmus test. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's a pretty reliable one because it's one of those issues that everyone can understand. It's one of those issues that has, mass disapproval. So it basically shows that a politician is more invested in doing the bidding of corporations or PACs than the bidding of the population. That's it. You could have made the argument maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, that there wasn't mass disapproval of Israel as there is one now, and therefore get away with it by being like, oh, I don't know enough about this. It's a foreign country. Not everyone is actually, this is a divisive issue. People are divided on it. You can't make that argument anymore because the only divide that exists on this issue is not amongst the population. It's not amongst the working class. It's not amongst the voters, especially in the Democratic Party. The only divide is between the voters and the politicians now. That's it. Anyway, Zohran's answer is very good. I'm just giving you my answer or why I say this, since it was brought up as a point against Zohran, kind of, or just they asked Zohran.
I think it's an important part. I wouldn't say that there's a specific litmus test as to creating a cookie cutter of a person that I would endorse in any one which seat. What I would say is that you have to have a clear vision of being able to describe things as they are and being able to fight for that which working people have been denied.
But can it include those who support Israel and support America's support of Israel?
I think when you asked me earlier of what is my party, I've said the Democratic Party.
I'm asking you, though.
Yes, and my point is...
Not what's in the Democratic Party, but...
Understood.
Yeah.
My point is that the importance of a big...
What would you do with the money? Dude, unlimited funds, immediately establishing healthcare, government-run, free grocery stores, free everything, fast and free buses, free subway, building out the public transit system in New York. Expand the subway, infrastructure, jobs, good paying jobs, millions and millions of jobs.
It's critical not just in how we describe ourselves as what we belong to.
I put a Japanese toilet in every public restroom. I put a public restroom in every corner and a Japanese Toto toilet in every single one of them damn public restrooms. And I make the janitor staff get paid like $200,000 a year, luxury jobs for sanitation. Okay, good paying union jobs with great benefits for all the public workers that clean those toilets. Those toilets are going to look like Japanese toilets. Okay, Universal bidet access for all. See, now that wasn't a part of his 5 policies, but let's be real. He did promise us that shit. He did. Remember? I ain't forget.
But also that we can work with those with whom we might not have agreement on every single issue. And you can even see in the administration that I've put together, it's not an administration where at every job interview I ask someone, what are your thoughts about Israel and Palestine? Frankly, it has very little to do with most of the things that I'm hiring for. And what we want is to show that you are looking for expertise, you are looking to deliver on the ambition of your policy platform, and to build a team that's able to do so. And when it comes to my endorsements of Congress members or those running for state legislative seats, they have to show a vision of the world that speaks to that despair and also addresses how you would actually deliver something different.
And you felt that Espaillat didn't do that?
No.
One other question on this. Former Vice President and presidential candidate Kamala Harris.
That is also why Democratic voters are resenting Israel more and more, because they're receiving the message loud and clear that it is the pet project of party elites who want money and institutional ties to outweigh the voters themselves. Yeah. Ilhan Omar was turbo canceled for saying it. Ever since the pro-Israel side has said exactly the same thing as a threat. It's not about votes. It's about small, obsessive, and wealthy. It's about a small and obsessive and wealthy faction whose financial influence drowns out your votes. Yeah, I've seen this. Lemao, the dilemma Democrats is more financial than electoral. Dems can theoretically survive Jewish voter defection in non-competitive areas, but can they make up for Jewish and pro-Israel donor defections? Let's check in on their campaign coffers. The DNC has nearly $15 million on hand, but is $18 million in debt. What's crazy about this argument is that because AIPAC has funded Democrats and Republicans, they have basically upped the ante, right? They've basically redefined how much money is being spent in these elections. So when AIPAC pulls out, which, by the way, not funded by Jewish donors in its entirety at all, AIPAC is funded by a lot of MAGA Republican donors, as a matter of fact. When AIPAC pulls out, there is a giant fundraising issue. This is the reality without the pro-Israel donations coming into the Democratic Party. This is what they've been avoiding. This is what they've been terrified of. And it's really interesting because, yes, as Dylan also notes, for years AIPAC has said it's not just wrong, but anti-Semitic to say there's a direct link between the money it raises for politicians and how lawmakers vote. Now, by ending contributions expressly on the basis of a single vote, is showing exactly how it operates. AIPAC and pro-Israel donors made and basically in some ways like redefined how much money gets spent in these races, right? So they increased the bottom, like the bottom necessary for a campaign's viability. And then now they're pulling out of one side, and all of a sudden they're still funding the other side. It's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Now, of course, the counter argument to this is the side that out fundraised and still lost. I'm, of course, referencing Kamala Harris, who had $1 billion. You still need money, okay? You obviously still need money to get in front of attack ads. It's not great when your candidacy is mired with fake controversies that are manufactured by big donors, like big outside expenditures. We're seeing a version of this reality with the Abdul al-Sayed race. However, the side that out fundraises doesn't always win, especially if they don't have policies that match. If they don't have policies that are responsive to the needs of the masses. Kamala Harris was a great example of this, and so was Hillary Rodham Clinton in 2016. That's precisely the reason why you've seen plenty of campaigns this primary season get outspent 2-1, 3-1, and in the case of Abdul al-Sayed, 10-1, potentially 12-1. Think about the fundraising disparity there. 12-1. For every dollar spent on Abdul, AIPAC and other corporate PACs are spending $12 to get Haley Stevens elected to that seat. Well, not even elected to that seat, just to win the primary. No guarantee that they'll continue spending at that level against Mike Rogers when Mike Rogers is also a servant of the same interests. Think about that. Is this a democracy? If your elections are bought and sold to the highest bidder, you don't have real elections at all. You don't have a real democracy at all. It shouldn't be this tough. It shouldn't be this tough to get the word out. It shouldn't be this tough to be able to, put yourself in front of every single voter and say, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, vote for me and I'll fight like hell for you. But unfortunately, moneyed interests, Citizens United, and numerous other Supreme Court decisions that favor corporations being able to fundraise and spend however much money they want to has made it impossible to have an honest and just, fair and free election system. That's just the reality. Abdul held his own on
what you're going to do with
Israel
my tax dollars and why you're sending them there when
on Pod Save America.
With all due respect, I mean, the question of whether Israel should exist or not is essential when you're answering whether U.S. tax dollars should go towards protecting that right to exist. And it sort of raised, let me just ask you the question, because, I think you've made it a zero-sum game between like funding for example, schools and aid to Israel. The U.S. budget is large, and there's a question about, to what degree Congress should prioritize spending on Israel, which gets at the central question for, I think, a lot of Jews in this country and a lot of Jews in your state is, the Jewish identity and the Jewish statehood is essential to them. And they may think the war is a genocide in Gaza, and they may completely disagree with Bibi Netanyahu, but their Jewish identity is as essential to them as their American identity. So I wonder, when you are thinking about those people, and they may support you, how do you help them understand where Israel exists on your list of priorities? Is it immoral to support Israel at this point, or is there some other is there some other avenue?
Look, I was really grateful to grow up in a community with a large Jewish community, 40% Jewish. I had the privilege of being welcomed to shul and being welcomed to Seder and going to bar and bat mitzvahs growing up. I learned a lot about the Jewish faith. I learned so much about the Jewish contribution to American culture and society. And I will do everything I can to protect Jewish Americans in this country from anti-Semitism. I also, in as much as I love the Jewish people and Jewish culture, I love and revere Palestinians and Palestinian culture. And most importantly, I love and revere the people I am running to serve here in Michigan. So the idea that Michigan tax dollars should be sent to a foreign government that wants to foreclose on Palestinian rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination, which I hold equal to Jewish rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination. But the idea that our money is being sent to a government that wants to foreclose on one community's right to self-determination and being misused away from solving the needs of the people I'm actually serving is a pretty crazy thing. And in setting up this question about Israel's right to exist, you rightly point to the idea of whether or not there is American intervention that ought to be spent to enforce that. And I think the vast majority of Americans would say, whatever you think about Israel's right to exist, our tax dollars should not be used for the interests of a foreign government when they need to be used for the interests of the people living in our community on its own. So I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. But I also understand that in an era where people ask you, how are you going to pay for that when you want to give people health care, or how are you going to pay for that when you want to give people good schools, it's pretty crazy to be sending our money over there when it could be used over here.
So no funding to ensure the survival or future of the Jewish state.
Well, I turn that back around on you, Alex, and say, why is it our responsibility to ensure that?
I'm just asking because I think people want a clear understanding. I think that,
but hear me out. Why is that the essential frame from which we work? Like, why is it assumed that the United States ought to be in the business of backstopping a foreign government? Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't want ill will for Jewish Israeli people at all. I really don't. I just want equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for all people. But the notion that somehow our tax dollars ought to secure the interests of a foreign government, like, this is the United States and our own kids don't have good schools, and you're telling me that that should be a primary concern over there? Like, imagine we said the same thing about any other country, any other one. Like, my family's from...
Yeah, does Estonia have a right to exist? Why don't you care about Why don't you care about propping up Estonia? Now, there's also additional irony here because Estonia, at least to my knowledge, has not committed a genocide with our tax dollars. You know what I mean? Like, the question should be, does Israel have a right to unlimited U.S. funding? And then to expand on that conversation, you can ask, does Iran have a right to unlimited U.S. funding? Does China have a right to unlimited U.S. funding? Why is it only Israel that gets to have this like God-given right, like it's in the Constitution or something? You hate Estonia because you don't want to give them $300 billion. Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the argument being like, hey, I hate how much you hate the beautiful nation of Lithuania because you don't want to give it $380 billion in the next 80 years. It's like, how dare you? How dare you? You want Estonia and Lithuania to no longer exist. It's like, bro, that's crazy. Bro, read the comments on this video. Let me guess. As predicted, as is the case with every Pod Save America episode, the comments are going to be like, oh my God, Abdul is so base. He's so intelligent, speaks like a human. His answer on Israel was perfection. I'm so jealous Michigan voters who get to vote for him. Abdul made the most impressive Senate candidate I've ever seen. It's always that way. It's kind of funny because like the Podjons are fine. They're all right. You know, they're not my enemies, right? But their audience always comes across like they've never heard this before. You know what I mean? Their audience, whenever I'm on, I love looking at the comments. Their audience is like, why do we never hear stuff like this? And it's so funny because it's like, there's a whole world out there. And it always makes me think like, what the hell are the Podjons saying to their audience? That whenever I go on, they're like, I've literally never heard someone speak like this before. This just like unlocked chakras in my mind. You know what I mean? You opened up my third eye with pretty much the most like elementary anti-Zionist talking points. Super basic. To be honest, that's why I became a fan of you like 2021. Yeah, that's why I always give credit to the boys, to the pod boys, to the Podjons, because they don't shy away from having these conversations, and their audience is obviously primed for it. So that means they haven't been like negatively framing the left and constantly antagonizing against the left flank, which is something I do give a lot of credit to them over. Your appearance after the 2024 election on Podjons one time brought me over, never looked back. See, that's what I mean. Private meet and greet just for me in DC when? It's not happening, cutie pie.
From Egypt, okay? Like, would it be crazy if somebody was asking me like, hey, do you think Egypt has the right to exist? People would be like, Egypt exists. I'm like, well, if somebody wanted to change the nature of Egypt, do you think the United States should be spending all of its money to make sure, or any of its money to make sure that that happens? And people are like, I don't know, that seems like a different country's issue. But like, I'm just saying that like you can both say that Israel exists, but it doesn't have a right to my tax dollars. And it is not our responsibility as American taxpayers to take money away from kids who don't have good schools and give it to a country to buy bombs and tanks. Like the idea that our conversation even questions that is itself a big question we should be asking. Like, why is this the frame of the debate?
Yeah, Chuck Schumer is here. He's sleeping in the bed. And he's a little bit loosey-goosey, you know? We know how his ass is. Anyway, speaking of Abdul, our boy, he got harassed by Jake Lang today. Let's take a look.
Why are you persecuting me?
We're gonna clap him out. The reason I wanted to clap him out to USA is because he doesn't hate me. He doesn't hate AG. He don't even hate you. You know what he hates? He hates America. He hates the idea of what America was always supposed to be.
Oh, God damn. That's what I'm talking about, Abdul. Oh, my God.
Of the people, by the people, and for the people. Where it should not matter the color of your skin, should not matter how you pray, should not matter who you love, that you can be fully and 100% America. He hates that America. He wants America to be small. He wants America to be like him. He wants America to be hateful. He wants America to be a place that does not include. And every day that we go out there and we knock on those doors, we make an argument about what America actually is. An America that is bigger than his hate. An America that is bigger than the small-mindedness that he brings to this. An America that has a bigger heart.
Dude, that's the reverse farm, baby. That's the clip. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. Uno reverse. Someone comes after you trying to farm a clip. You just flip the script on them. You flip the script on them and you get the clip instead. He had to leave crying. Nobody was afraid of him. The room was cheering him away. Ooh, god damn, that's good. Yep, that's called clip maxing. That's called clip mogging.
Than the one that he has. An America that is bigger than a Donald Trump who thinks that some people don't get to belong here because of their color of their skin. An America that is bigger than the idea that we all can come together and pray how we choose or not pray at all. An America is bigger than Mike Rogers and the corporate corruption that they all take to run these campaigns to pick our pocket. The America they believe in is one where a few people who look a particular way get to siphon off your money to make billions. That's the America they want. That's the America he represents. That's the America he's so mad he didn't get. And as much as that's an ugly display of the America they want for us, this here is a beautiful display of the America we can yet build.
You should stream with Abdul again? I will. That was fire. Meanwhile, I got freaking Adam Schiff, dude. Great. That's great, man. I love it. Anyway, but it is really funny that everybody used to yell at Ilhan Omar for saying it's all about the Benjamins, that, you know, AIPAC plays a formative role in the elections in the United States. And now they're saying it out loud. They're saying it as a threat. It's crazy. There's a whole cohort of Beltway staff or consultant types that just ignore the more than 52 million poured into my home state in an attempt to buy a Senate seat. Absolutely disgusting. It's not just the Beltway staff or consultant types, because their job is to get those donors, right? Their job is to be the connective tissue between those corporate PACs and the campaigns and the politicians themselves. This is how they make their money. Now, I hate them, but I understand where they're coming from. What I cannot understand is why the media has not covered this. Every single time Haley Stevens goes on any news outlet, reporters should say, hey, what do you have to say for the $52 million being spent in your direction by AIPAC and numerous other corporate PACs? What does that say? What does that say about who you stand with to the Michigan voters you want to convince? How will you convince the Michigan voters that you will stand with them as opposed to corporate interests? Why do you think they're spending $52 million in your direction? Why do you think Israel and AIPAC subsidiaries are spending 40 of the $52 million to make sure you win this primary as opposed to Abdul al-Sayed? These are some free questions that journalists should be asking Haley Stevens every single time, because this is newsworthy. This is a record-breaking amount of money that they're spending to buy this fucking seat, and I haven't heard a goddamn peep from mainstream media about it. Not a fucking peep. Meanwhile, every time Abdul goes on a show, they're like, oh, what about this Twitch streamer that you did a campaign rally with? What about this Twitch streamer? What about this Twitch streamer, Hasan Piker? What do you think is more important to the Michiganders? If you're a goddamn journalist, what do you think is more important for the public to know? Whether a congresswoman who's now running for Senate is bought and sold by a foreign lobby that is unbelievably toxic to the average voter, especially in the Democratic Party, or a goddamn Twitch streamer who pops off every now and then. What do you think is more important for the voters? You have a duty. You have a job. Your job is to find the truth. Your job is to ask important questions. Your job is to make the public more aware of what's going on. It's not my job technically, but I'm doing it too. So it blows my mind that so many mainstream reporters have just foregone this primary responsibility. This is their most important obligation, an obligation to the truth, uncompromising obligation to the truth. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And then they're getting really nasty with it too. Fred Gutenberg, which is another anti-gun violence guy. I don't know what the f***'s up with these guys. I genuinely don't understand why so many of these Parkland school shooting survivors and survivor families that did great work trying to combat gun violence in this country have all become unbelievable and rapacious dick riders of AIPAC. I don't get it. Rashida Tlaib calls out all of the corporations that have funded the Haley Stevens campaign. Fred Gutenberg comes out and says, hey, Rashida Tlaib, you are a cancer on the Democratic Party in America. You and your stupid protest vote are the reason we have a second Trump term. You are not a Democrat, but you certainly use the party. As for influencers, check your own house and other fight agency clients like Plattner. Like I said, you are cancer. Matthew Hasan says, nothing to see here, just a Haley Stevens supporter repeatedly calling the only Palestinian American woman in Congress a cancer. But hey, the left and Abdul need to be more civil. Hey, when do you think you'll be barred from flying? What kind of question is that, man? Hopefully never. Okay? What are you talking about? The Parkland shooting left him completely bitter and jaded. Dog, if you have made it your life's mission, to stop school shootings in the United States of America, how can you not channel that same energy for AIPAC? How can you say, on the one hand, American kids shouldn't be dying in schools, and then also, on the other hand, say, but Iranian kids should be blown up in their schools. Palestinian kids should be blown up in their schools. Lebanese kids should be blown up in their schools, and we should give the country doing that unlimited tax dollars and unlimited funds. How does this not add in your mind? I'll give you one more domestic example, right? Because people will say, okay, that's Israel, that's a foreign policy issue. Maybe they're racist, who cares? Okay, these guys have fought back against NRA funding, tooth and nail. It's an honorable cause. It's an honorable cause in their advocacy, right? These guys hate NRA. Why do they hate NRA? Because NRA is the lobby that makes sure that there's no real legislation written that would create a sense of safety and security, common sense gun reforms, common sense gun legislation that people want, like universal background checks. The NRA has made that impossible, right? So they're very familiar with moneyed interest from special interest groups coming in and destroying the democratic process. They hate that, right? They hate that shit. What is this? The Reality of Genocide, an important read? Oh, God. Like, Shannon Watts would understandably yell at people if they were backed by the NRA. If there was a Democrat that was backed by the NRA to the tune of $50 million, Shannon Watts would be like, the fuck are you doing? You're supposed to be a Democrat, and you're backed by one of the most significant MAGA-funded special interest groups in the country. You're not a real Democrat. But Shannon Watts is doing that for AIPAC. AIPAC is also MAGA. AIPAC is also funded almost entirely by Republican billionaires. Right? What the It's the same goddamn argument. You just don't see Israel's victims as human beings. That's the difference. But yeah, Mike Waltz called the arrest of Netanyahu by Zohran pure political theater. I mean, there is some truth to that sentiment. Ambassador Mike Waltz says, Mayor Mamdani, here's why your threat to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu in New York City in the UNGA is not going to happen. The U.S. is not party to the Rome Statute that underlines the ICC. The UN headquarters agreement grants diplomatic protections to visiting heads of government. Head of state immunity applies, and federal authority trumps any local mayor's wishes. This is pure political theater. Oh yeah? So can the new supreme leader of the Islamic Republic show up and get that same protection? Are Greeks with Dr. Jihad? Are Greeks white is one of those questions that separates casual racists from elite race scientists. Oh, I think Ben Shapiro loved the Odyssey, by the way. Yeah, they arrested Maduro in Caracas. What happened to the head of state protection? By the way, so that was, the Zohran thing. Hasan, you've been saying anti-black dog whistles this entire election cycle? What is that? What's the anti-black dog whistle?
When you say establishment.
Right.
Because what's so very careful when you say establishment.
Right.
Because what so many people mean and what Bernie Sanders absolutely means is black people.
Yeah, no, that's not.
So I've been meaning.
That's crazy. That's no, I think it just means establishment Democrats. Like I think that's not. I don't know how to respond to that. You know what I mean? Because that's like, I feel like that was concocted. That was a take that was concocted in 2016 in a laboratory to one-shot me. I feel like they came up with that take in a lab to just destroy me. You know what I mean? I encountered that take for the first time and it bricks me immediately. Leaves me broken in a state of disrepair. What the is that, bro? Our favorite dumbass agrees. I feel like I wanna take a controversial stance here and say I kind of celebrate, dare I say, cherish the unique and creative ways in which the right wing of the Democratic Party are fighting against this left flank. You gotta appreciate it because they're cooking up some takes that I think most people would be far too embarrassed to say out loud. Have you seen this Haley Stevens? She's growing on me thing. Yeah, I saw it on my timeline. I didn't really have too much here. Let me blast off real quick. I'm in DC. Hasan, my brother helped put together College Gems Convention. So excited to have you as a guest. We come from a small town in Georgia. Thank you so much for coming to this event. You got it. Fox News put me in the thumbo of this. Far left Democrats winning over Gen Z. Incredibly infectious. Wait, what the hell? Remember the poll we said was cooked for Stevens? Proof it was? Yes, I know it was. It's an outlier, chat. Yeah, the Glenn Garrett polls have always been an outlier. It's basically an internal poll. Anyway, we'll cover all that. We'll cover all that stuff. Don't worry. But yeah, their crosstabs were released and it looks nutty. It's like Haley Stevens wins only if it's like Detroit Metro. Only Detroit Metro votes. Blood sounds tired. I am, bro. I didn't sleep that much. The college Dems are all basically Hasanabe heads. I know a kid running for Georgia College Dems as a Hasanabe head. Yeah. No, I realize that now. When I first got invited, I had no idea. I didn't understand what the event was like. I didn't understand what the organization looked like, but these are all like staffers and people that are, college students and stuff that are all trying to work within the Democratic Party, but most of them are Hasanabe heads apparently. Anyway, where was I? What was I talking about? Have you checked out Head in the Office coverage of the Michigan race? They've deemed Haley Stevens the plague bringer for the poop virus in 3 days of wildfire darkness. That's funny. I love Head in the Office. They're great. Oh, I was playing this TikTok. Let's start it from the start.
Very careful when you say establishment.
Right.
Because what so many people mean and what Bernie Sanders absolutely means is black people.
So I've been meaning to talk about this for like a week and some change now, but I want to talk about the whole Democratic influencers saying, like, tweeting or putting on threads, whatever, that using the establishment term and how, like, the DSA has been using establishment is really a placeholder for the N-word. And you know who was up under them comments? Jasmine Crockett. You can't make this shit up. You can't make this shit up. I've been made videos like maybe it was like 2-3 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah, that's what we mean when we say Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are the establishment. Yeah, that's that. It's crazy that they caught on. I can't believe it. You know what I mean? I can't believe it. The secret's out, I guess. Secret's out, folks. It's over.
You can scroll. But the reason why I have such issue with a lot of the Democratic politicians, specifically the black ones, is because they know what they're doing. They're leasing out our identity, our radical tradition, our revolutionary history. They know, they read the books, they went to HBCUs, they were the first to do this or accomplish that, they were the only black woman in their job or whatever they know what it is. But instead of using that position to turn back to community and hype up the things that are really central to our existence in terms of black people and pushing us forward and making sure our community is straight, making sure we have the programs we need, making sure that we are all being lifted up, they then turn that inward to enrich themselves and then market that back to you as if that's progress. The reason why these white Democratic influencers are coming on here saying, doesn't that sound like the N-word? It's because their position is being challenged by a more left, and that's, you know, in quotations, a more left than them option.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of this argument is, yes, literally, it implies that, like, you know, Nancy Pelosi is now officially black. Like, establishment Democrats are black, regardless of the fact that they're not. It's just crazy. Also, saying this about DSA is really funny because, like, there's like one white guy in the entire country that's running. There's literally one white man, right? Am I crazy? I feel like there's how many white guys are running as DSA candidates? Like, what the are we doing? What are we talking about? It's so strange. There are very few white men running on the DSA platform, DSA affiliated, or even like close to our politics in general, right? Is mostly black and brown women. So even on that front, it doesn't make sense. Not that it matters. What matters are the policies. But I don't know. I find it very odd, this argument. I mean, I'm glad she's ripping it apart, but
for people to choose for that are sticking to the script. They're going on these platforms and they're saying what their policies are. Very
someone sent me that OG video.
Clear, very transparent, no hoops and dance parties and all of that extra fluff and shit. They're straight to the point. Affordability, climate crisis, taxing the rich, all of these things, universal health care, universal child care. Things that people want to hear, things that people need, things that Trump ran on in order to get people to, you know, obviously vote for him, that he obviously was lying about actually implementing because our lives are a flaming piece of dog shit right now. Democrats would rather punch left instead of actually having an effective strategy for any of the new upcoming elections that are happening. Midterms are in a few months. That's number one. Number two, 2028 is looming. And do you hear who's going to be running for president? Have you heard something? Are they learning from their mistakes with last time? It doesn't seem like it. Literally, Cory Booker and a bunch of Democrats just voted against a bill that a Republican put up to the floor about, you know, ending funding for Israel.
You have to be very careful when you say establishment.
Right.
Because what so many people mean, and what Bernie Sanders absolutely means, is black people. Especially from somebody who ran in two presidential primaries, because presidential primaries are often decided by black voters in the South. So when he talks about, you know, the establishment, whatever, he's not talking about Debbie,
right?
Wasserman Schultz. He's talking.
What? why wouldn't anybody be talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who literally carpetbagged into a black district in Florida? Like, these people are living on a different timeline, right? I mean, I had Elijah Manley on, Florida 20, a district that Debbie Wasserman Schultz carpetbagged into. She absolutely is an establishment Democrat. What the are you saying? God, these grifters, man, they're not even trying hard. Yeah, also, Bernie ran against Joe Biden, who's the other contender, the establishment contender, and Hillary Rodham Clinton. Okay? Reminded that the under the desk person was a Romney voter and is non-binary. Non-binary.
Of the black voters in South Carolina who did not like him. And that, you know, if
I
you
thought
poke at it enough,
I thought that person was chill. Why are they agreeing with this nonsense? It don't make no dang sense. Yeah, by the way, it is very odd that CBC is staying out of the Florida races, including Florida 20.
even Hasan Piker, people on the far left of the party will start talking about, like, well, maybe black people have too much power in the party. Maybe black people
When have I ever said that? Literally, when have I ever said that? That's crazy. I hope get multiple black people elected in the primaries so far. No white people so far. Not one. You know what I mean? Not a single dang white person. I guess maybe one DEI white guy in the New York City DSA slate. And he's Jewish and he's gay. But that's it. Wait, their face is like, what?
Hasan Piker, people on the far left of the party will start talking about, like, well, maybe black people have too much power in the party. Maybe black people have...
They're like, who the is Amanda Nelson? I have no idea. Brad Lander is gay. I didn't work with the Brad Lander campaign. I'm talking about Oliver. I'm not Oliver Larkin. Sorry. No, New York City DSA slate. Not Brad Lander is not on the DSA slate. No, not Oliver Larkin. Sorry. Oliver Larkin is another white guy, but he's not gay. David Orkin is who I'm talking about. Also, Oliver Larkin, David Orkin, what the hell's going on? Brad Lander is not even in DSA any longer. I'm talking about David Orkin.
Too much. I've seen people on TikTok say that.
What? You've seen people on TikTok say that I think black people have too much power? That's crazy. Okay. What if people on TikTok were like saying you're a pedophile? Would that make it the case? You know what I mean? If I ran around saying stuff like that, that would be an insane that'd be an insane thing to just claim, right? Oh, I've seen people on TikTok say that. I can't believe she just said my source, TikTok.
Shut up.
And
because when black voters have more power in the party and more power in politics in general, that is the boat that raises all ships, because they vote for progressive policies that benefit their communities and therefore everyone else. Bernie is trying, and his friends are trying to come at it from the...
What is this angle that like Bernie Sanders' policies are just not progressive? Is that what the argument is? And the reason for it is because like black people in the primaries didn't vote for Bernie? Is that like that's how we... this is such a strange argument to make. We've moved beyond standpoint epistemology. Also, this is such a nasty way to do commentary. What a cynical application. What a cynical application of just the most hollowed out version of shallow identity politics. That's crazy. For the longest time, black revolutionaries, black radicals were, and the entire civil rights struggle was determined to be communist, right? By right-wingers, by Republicans, by racists, by white supremacists. That was the whole meta. Now you got liberals claiming every black person is monolithic in their approach to politics, and they're all invested in neoliberalism. But by virtue of black people voting for establishment Democrats, that means establishment Democrats are the most progressive. It's just like so strange. How about people are not monolithic? How about there's definitely a generational divide with voter participation in every demographic, and certainly in the black community as well. And that's pretty much it. The civil rights movement wasn't made out to be communist. It was just communist. I mean, there were different elements in it. You know, obviously the biggest advocates were primarily socialists, communists, and the like. Yes, the Black Panther Party. MLK was a socialist. Not that it matters. I mean, it's just such a strange thing.
The other direction, that my white working class populism will raise the ship of civil rights in this country. And that is delusional. It's delusional. That has never worked. That's the same shit Woodrow Wilson said. And look what we got, the resurgence of the Klan.
There's no way she believes this, right? She's just getting paid for it, right? A white woman quote tweeting a black woman saying this is peak Twitter. Yeah. Yeah. Audrey saying they're rap Dr. Abdul El Sayed the way they ref Bernie Sanders 10 years ago. Here, Raffican refers to allowing black people to vote. It's awesome. So what's going to happen eventually? Like, you know, the more black voters move in the direction of the insurgent left flank, as we've seen already, at that point, what is the establishment narrative going to be? What's their narrative going to be then? That like all the black people that are voting for socialist candidates or self-identify as socialists are just not. Like Sri Tanadar in Detroit is a great example of this, right? Donovan McKinney is Detroit's a very black district. Donovan McKinney's running against Sri Tanadar. Sri Tanadar is Indian, of Indian descent, of Indian background. Donovan's black. Donovan also happens to be the DSA endorsed candidate. And yet, Sri Tanadar has flooded the market with a barrage of ads. And he's actually, performing decently well, regardless of the fact that he is a pretty weak candidate, right? It's supposed to be a super weak candidate. And there are a lot of black people in the district that are, seemingly in favor of voting for Sri Tanadar over Donovan, who himself is black. So what is that? Like, how does that calculation work in that situation? Does that mean Donovan is no longer black and Sri is? How does that work? I'm asking sincerely, is Donovan no longer black, but Sri is because he's the establishment candidate? He's the pro-Israel candidate? Got to think before speaking. Are you telling me that or are you telling that lady that? We already watched this unfold with Haley Stevens versus Andy Levin, sorry. Okay? Haley Stevens is not Jewish. Andy is. AIPAC backed Haley Stevens to the hilt in the same way that they are right now in the Senate race to defeat Andy Levin, who is Jewish. Stop listening to these weirdos. Okay? They don't get to dictate who's black, who's not black. They don't get to dictate who's Jewish, who's not Jewish. It's such a strange way to do politics. Your blackness or your status as a Jewish person is not determined by how comfortable or uncomfortable you make the establishment. No one in the real world behaves like this. It's just these weird, centrist, candidate-backed, campaign-backed, DNC-backed losers that try to present a stupid argument like this. It's ridiculous. Focus on the policies first and foremost. Okay? I think she might not be white, not nitpicking, but I don't want you to get yelled at. What, the account? This account? This account? This person's not white? Alice Poole? Are you sure? What are they, like Italian? No, Amanda Nelson. I'm not calling Amanda Nelson white. I don't know who Amanda Nelson is. I didn't say she was white. Where did you get that from? Anyway, yeah, that's crazy, man. That's actually crazy. I mean, this stuff is so silly. It's so stupid. I don't think any real person believes this shit.
Real. And we're still having these conversations, and instead of those Democratic influencers talking about the issues with the candidates, they'd rather stand them and create these whole weird ass dichotomies around race, and instead of trying to support what the people actually need and what the people actually want. Right? It is a popular position to abolish ICE. It is an extremely popular position to stop funding the war, Israel and their, bloodlust. That is an extremely popular position in the United States right now, current to this day. At this point, after what we've all seen on our phones for the past 3 years in terms of what's going on in Palestine and what's been going on for the past 80 years, it is absolutely batshit crazy for anyone in the Democratic establishment to be campaigning on anything related to Israel and anything less than abolishing ICE. Do you see what I'm saying? And yet, they will twist and manipulate and use black identity to cover themselves from any responsibility. And these black politicians who are in it for their ego, in it for enriching themselves, in it for personal gain, are going to sit here and cheer them on while they do it, while it's under the guise, or they're claiming it's under the guise of protecting black people and protecting black women. I'm not falling.
The establishment equals the N-word was started by a white woman. Oh my God. It was that Susan Lambert lady. It sure seems like many people on the far left throw the term establishment around when they'd rather be using the N-word instead. There is white supremacy embedded in thinking establishment could ever compare to the history and gravity of being called the N-word. Establishment isn't a slur, it's just an adjective to Democrat. Stop entertaining these goofy white people and establishment Democrat leaders who behave like this. Yeah, Jasmine Crockett applauded this take, by the way. Oh my God. I mean, this kind of stuff is so stupid and it's so silly. It's so strange. It's so frustrating. I don't really know how to deal with it anymore, you know? Oh my God. Haley Stevens, Shri Tanadar, and Senator Gary Peters are all participating in a conga line? What the Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've only seen her this excited about talking about Michigan and Israel. One makes sense, the other doesn't.